Jo Saunders is a leading international LinkedIn expert. She's a social media educator and a marketing strategist. And today we're going to talk about her new book, Get Good or Get Off, A Guide to Getting It Right on Social Media. Jo gives talks all over the world. And today we're going to learn more about the woman behind the brand. And the brand being, if you type in Jo Saunders on Google, she'll pretty much dominate the first few pages. I'm hoping to demystify the world of social media with Jo today and learn more about her. Jo Saunders, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
I know. I see you on YouTube giving a lot of seminars in front of people, and you're a LinkedIn demystifier.
Yes.
Is that what you've called on LinkedIn?
Yeah, pretty much. I haven't named myself it though. It's something that people name me.
Oh,
so
right?
I kind of went, sure, I'll do that. So it's kind of what I do because I'm really a nosy person. I just press all the buttons and lift all the rocks, look underneath.
Well, you and I get on because I'm a nosy person, which is why I do this.
Nosy or curious is probably a more polite way of saying I'm just
curious.
Curious about everything.
I think that's a very good thing to do. And it's a good thing to have, is that curiosity.
Yeah.
I say that as well. Somebody said, why podcast? And I said, I'm just an overly curious person about people.
Yeah.
So I'll have on professionals in their field, whether it's athletes or authors, or I had on a hunter two weeks ago, and he gets flown all around the world. But it's not so much about their profession. Mm-hmm. It's about what makes them tick and why they get drawn to certain things. And I love that. I love that as well. Like, yes, we can talk about LinkedIn, and we will, but I'm more interested in Jo Saunders. I'm more interested in, you were brought up in England. You came here, you met your husband. You were telling me that you converted to Judaism because your husband, it was important to him. You're not religious, but yet you're curious about that. And I love that. I love that. So what age were you when you came out from the United Kingdom?
To here.
Yeah.
I was 15. So that really awkward age. I had a boyfriend as well, which was really awkward because, I actually came here on holiday and we stayed.
Oh, is that right?
Obviously we had permission, but we were trying to move here and they just changed their immigration system. So we had enough points and then suddenly we didn't. So my parents just decided, let's just go on holiday. My dad's parents were here. His sister was here already. So we came here and so I was in holiday mode, having a great time. And then we suddenly got the approval to stay and I never went home. So bye-bye boyfriend.
Oh, so he was back in England.
Yeah.
That's because my sister was 15 when we came out here.
Yeah.
She hated it. We came out in 1976.
Okay.
So Perth was very different then.
Yeah.
And she had a boyfriend back in England. She had so many friends. And for the first 2 years, she was like, I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home. And after a while, she started to find a footing, but she ended up making a life here. But it was the hardest thing for her. I was only 5.
Yeah.
So for me, it was no real difference. I just remember the heat, which we never got in England. So the heat, which is why I remember certain things. But so when was that?
That was 1989.
That was 1989.
Yeah.
Oh, so not that long.
Well,
not that long ago.
89. Yeah. I mean, I've been here a long time now. But it was that awkwardness because I came here right at the end of year 10. And in England, I was midway through, GCSEs. And so I came here on holiday, but I was studying. So I brought all my textbooks and I was keeping up to date with my work and then didn't go back. So I didn't get to do it was like, an open loop. Didn't get to complete that. And then, came here and thought, well, what am I going to do? Did year 11 and 12, but still wasn't really, I was in that whole, I don't know, this is not my home and these aren't my people. It took me a while to kind of find my feet, I think.
Yeah.
Different.
There's a difference. I was watching something before you came where one person on Casey Neistat, he's a famous blogger, and he's the one that started really when no one was turning the camera on themselves and talking about their life. He did that first. But he grew up and he moved to New York and he loved New York. And then he got 2 kids and then they moved to a sunnier side of America. And he just said it just wasn't home. Home is where that place becomes who you are.
Yeah.
And so he said, even though it was in the same country, it was just very different. I spent my 20s in Sydney and I loved it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love. I'm a city person, and I still think Sydney is one of my favourite places in Australia. But family is where Perth was. So we came back to Perth because I missed my family. But as an older person, I'm not in my 20s anymore, you start to appreciate what you have around you
Yeah.
and you utilize that. So because I travel a lot, it's nice to come home where things are a bit slower. I can just breathe a little bit. Sydney, I didn't get to breathe. It was just like 100 kilometers an hour everywhere you went.
Yeah.
But it was nice, and I'm appreciating that more now. But yet I can visit those places and then come back.
And I think that's the difference, isn't it? It's where you see yourself visiting. So right now, if I was to go to the UK, I would be visiting the UK.
That's right.
You know, and it took quite a while to get to that point of going, where is home? And then eventually it was like, yeah, coming back here, this is home. You know, so it's interesting.
And how many kids do you have?
3.
Oh, you've got 3 kids.
Yeah.
I only know one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So were they all born here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're Australian basically now, all of you.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, when I speak to people, they think I speak Australian, but it's funny because I don't know. I didn't see that.
I do. I am hearing a slight tinge of British.
Yeah.
In your voice. And I suppose do you switch that way the more if you start talking to a lot of English people, you start bleeding into Cockney.
Well, I'm from Yorkshire, so that's
okay.
a pretty broad accent. And my parents, they're here still, and they speak very broad Yorkshire.
Okay.
They haven't adapted at all. I mean, they probably have a little bit, but I'm not aware of it because they sound really broad to me. So when I do go visit them, there's a time I'm in no man's land and words will slip out and my kids will just laugh at me. And then eventually I start speaking broad Yorkshire, and it takes me a while then to kind of go back.
Yeah.
And even now I'll say a word and I'll say it the Yorkshire way and my kids just go, you said one.
So you still have family back there?
In England. Not direct family anymore. I mean, they're more cousins and aunties and uncles, but my grandparents passed on. So there's no one I would, that sounds terrible, doesn't it? No one I'd go and see. I mean, there are people I'd see, but not like people that are really close to me.
That you feel obliged to travel there to see. Like if it was your grandparents, you'd have to go. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love going to visit them. So I've got, my parents and my brothers and sisters are all here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And how long have you been married now?
Oh gosh, no, that's a
pressure, Jo.
Thinking, how old's my oldest son? I go, how old is he? He's 24, so I've been married 25 years.
25 years. It does go so quick though.
I know.
It does. Now, before we branch into your fabulous book and LinkedIn, what were you doing before? And how did you discover LinkedIn? And what were you doing before LinkedIn?
Yeah, no, interesting question. Everything's been accidental. It's not like I left school and went, I'm going to be a LinkedIn specialist. Didn't exist, did it?
No one.
Back in the day. Social media didn't exist. So back in actually high school, so moving to Australia, I had some pen friends. Actually, I had pen friends from French class back in high school in England. Then moving here, my friends in England became my pen friends. So did my grandparents, actually. My grandma was probably my most regular pen friend, we'll say. And then I started a pen friend club because I like helping people connect. I didn't know it back then. That's pretty much why I do what I do. I love helping people connect. I love learning about them. So I wanted to have a club and I wanted to have a magazine. So I started one. I had no idea about business though. And I had no idea, I had no goals around dollars and things like that. It was purely about a process, a service. So I had a magazine. Now the magazine, it wasn't a glossy magazine. It was very much sticking and gluing and photocopying.
Sure.
Sometimes at work when no one was looking. But I had a community around the world, and then social media kind of took off. And I then couldn't see a reason as to why I should continue this, because now we were connecting online. So it kind of
changed a lot, didn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I look back then, and it's interesting when you reflect, because back then that was not part of my career. I had a job, a government job in accounts, a bit boring. So I'd make it, lots of fun. And then I started studying design and marketing and kind of, just stepped into that. So looking back though, I remember, actually this is interesting because, you were lecturing at TAFE. I was working at North Metro TAFE. Not North Metro, East Central in East Perth.
Sure.
So I was working there in the course support design area, and there was an open day and I got asked, I will be introducing one of the guest speakers. I was mortified. I hated public speaking. Go bright red and all those things. And I had to introduce someone, and I was so nervous. That was the first public speaking thing I ever did, and I just wanted to crawl in a hole, And now I do it all over the world, wherever it needs to be. It's fun. It's really weird though how you look back and go, "How did I get from there to there?"
I know, and I think it's like a repeat and repetition thing. I think everybody's first time speaking in public, it's a big fear for a lot of people, and a lot of people don't realize the more people you speak to, the easier it becomes. So when I had large crowds, it's like a singer. If you are singing to a small group, you feel the tension because I think you're communicating with your eyes to separate people as you're singing. And when you're speaking, and if you're speaking to 400 people or 100 people, it's a lot easier than speaking to 20 people. But after a while, it just becomes so second nature. Like when I see your keynote presentations and you're up on stage and you're talking and you're answering questions and things, it just becomes who you are now. And it's probably you're more comfortable speaking with a lot of people.
And I think the difference is, though, it's talking about something that you can talk about for days. Like I did an event this week, and my style is very conversational. I mean, podcast.
Like this.
Exactly. I love this because I love having conversations. I'm really curious. I'd like to know about, what makes you tick too. So that's a win-win on both sides, isn't it? And same with events. So I'm having a conversation with the audience. But last year I got asked to MC some business awards, and I thought, oh, I don't know about this, because they'd been to one of my workshops and they loved my style. They thought I was hysterical. I'm accidentally funny, I think. So they said, they both looked at each other and said, we need someone to MC. And they both said my name. And I was thinking, in what world do they think I'm an MC? So I thought, okay, well, they're believing in me. And yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be a challenge because I've been doing lots of things to challenge myself way out of the comfort zone.
Good.
Give it a go. Didn't love it. I mean, it was okay. But I just thought, would I do that again? No, because it's a different scenario. You have to be entertaining. You have to be able to maintain the flow, the timings, keep people involved.
Sure.
And it's a whole different ball game. So I wouldn't do that again.
You don't think about that?
No, but then when I run my own events, like essentially I'm emceeing my own events, but it's different because I'm also educating them and we're having a conversation rather than just announcing a list of winners.
Sure.
So it's a very different.
Are you by the script person? Like Jo, you have a.
Oh no.
Let me just. Because I'm like that. I'm not like that, I should say.
Yeah.
I'll have this format, and all of a sudden I'm an hour in, and I've just branched off. I mean, I'm still talking about what I love.
Yeah.
But that was my lecturing. I'd have this game plan.
Yeah.
This is what the guys need to learn at the end of this session. And this is what I'm going to teach them. But I'm just an off the script type of guy because you have to go with the energy too, right?
You have to read the room, I think,
Yeah.
and know how to adapt. So because I've got an events background, I always have a run sheet. Everything's there. There's backup plans and even triple backup plans for certain things. But so I run this event with a group of people and, they know the timings. I'm the one to break the rules because I'll read the energy of the room, think, hang on, they're networking. Let's stay networking and let's start in 10 minutes time, because I can. And then I go off topic on something because it's where the conversation's going. And I think it's more valuable then because when you go to something or you're hearing someone speak and they delivering a sermon at you, it's just not as
it's not
engaging,
personal.
is it?
That's right. And I think with, I don't know if you would back me up on this, but everything that I've done, even with social media and personally when interacting with companies or within the marketing, it always came back to relationships. So when I had to film people, I would always one of my things that I used to do was not take the camera out of my bag, and I'd go for an interview to interview someone, but I'd talk to them about their day and what they're doing. By the time the camera's on, it's just so nice. And I think I've built a relationship with that person that they are able to trust me in order to carry them wherever I need to within the documentary or so. So I believe that in social media as well, LinkedIn, it's not just I need a job and you're the person to hire me. There's also am I right by saying there's a relationship building around bringing businesses together. How can one help another business? How can we help you? And it's not just about jobs. So a lot of people that I put out a questionnaire to people, and I've spoken to people over the last few weeks, and a lot of them were saying, we've got a profile on LinkedIn, but we don't use it. And I said, okay, so what's your profile about? And they'll say, well, do you know, Wayne, we build our relationships in other platforms. And I don't know. I think it's just about seeking jobs in LinkedIn, but I've got a job already. And so I was like, it was interesting to get all this feedback. And for me too, I've got a social media, my background was social media marketing and things, but I haven't updated it. And I'm getting a lot of people that are calling me now for podcast editing. And I've got a young guy starting with me next week who's an editor. But I'm constantly saying, I don't know why they are contacting me because of that. I'm getting a lot of film people still contacting me, but yet there's nothing on my profile that says I still do documentaries and I'm directing. I was a writer-director. So those are some of the things, like, are contacts the same as followers? That was another question. And what is the difference? So for me, what I will ask you is, what is LinkedIn?
Well, LinkedIn really, it's the largest professional social network. So it's not the largest social network, as there's many others, but it's the largest collection of people. It's the largest database of people.
Right.
I mean, at the moment, there's 850 million users around the world, 12 million in Australia alone. And you can sort of segment and find people in particular sectors, in particular industries. So it's people, it's also companies, it's also jobs, which is one of the traditional purposes for it. It's content now. It's a content publishing platform. And they've now created this thing it's called creator mode. But they've got this creator economy.
I saw it today.
Yeah, so they're really, and I mean, they're sort of not late to the party, but it's like they've realized there's a massive opportunity to create these creators. And I guess in the way YouTube have, I mean, I've been part of a creator program through YouTube, even though my audience is not huge. I think they just saw potential.
That's me too. They're all listeners, my audience.
Yeah, which is, I guess that's fine. But it's, yeah, so LinkedIn have harnessed that now. There's also events on LinkedIn. I mean, they're always adding new features. So I'm the person, because I'm really curious, I stay up to date with what's this new feature? What's different here? I'll notice they've changed the font by, half a point or something ridiculous. And I've got a network of colleagues who are not, I don't call them competitors, but we're competition or collaborators. I love finding people that are as nerdy about LinkedIn as I am, then we can nerd out together. So we compare notes and I'll say, oh, have you seen this? And is this doing this for you? And have you got this feature yet? And, we just get excited about it. I've got this feature. Have you got it? No. So Australia getting it before, the UK or whatever it is. Yeah.
Is it more popular in certain countries than others?
Good question. I think like the UK have always been ahead of Australia in terms of adoption of using the platform. So they've definitely, and the US are ahead as well. Yeah, I mean, there are certain countries that it's probably not as prolific, but it's more about the purpose though, because it's a very different platform to say Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. The thing that doesn't work if you try and make LinkedIn Facebook.
That's right.
Although the tone is certainly changing.
That was a rule I used to talk about, is that each platform has a purpose. And one guy said Facebook is about hanging around the water cooler at work, talking about your weekend.
Yeah.
Instagram is showing pictures about what happened on the weekend. But LinkedIn is also around the boardroom table, talking about business and how their business can grow. So if you try to put, your purpose in another platform that's not suited to that, it can work, but it won't be as effective. If you're promoting business, I'd love to know, because I should promote this more on LinkedIn. And that's another thing I was going to ask you. Is it better to upload the video directly to LinkedIn, or can you just put links from YouTube? There?
You can do both. I mean, any platform likes you to stay on the platform generally.
Sure.
But LinkedIn will never admit to having a preference to that. They've certainly made it, I guess, your content more visible using links, because sometimes you want to share a link to your YouTube video, particularly if your YouTube video is, 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is, whereas you physically can't do that on LinkedIn. The maximum time is 10 minutes.
Oh, is that right?
but no one's watching 10-minute video in the feed. But that's where what you might do is put a little highlights video of 30 seconds on LinkedIn with some text telling the story, getting people to watch that video, and then the link to the YouTube video in the text. So you're taking people along. So that way you can actually then promote that video multiple times with different segments of videos or an image.
Oh, okay. So another question that came up was uploading your CV and your resume. One guy was saying there's a place where you can upload your CV now, but he also said to upload the PDF into the photo where the
featured section.
Yeah, the featured section.
Yeah,
is that correct?
Yeah, and
I've done that, and I'm like, I don't know if that. I don't know if that's what I should be doing, or is it cheapening the fact? I don't know.
No, not at all. You're making it easy, because if a recruiter or someone, a decision maker needs to see you, they can read your whole profile. But think about when you're applying for a job, a resume is generally tailored towards the job. So my daughter, for instance, when she was in the film space, she had a film dedicated resume, and then she moved more towards events. Then she tailored it that way. And some of the filming stuff fell off the resume because it wasn't relevant anymore.
Sure.
Otherwise it'd be really long. And with LinkedIn, you can't really do that though, because it's everything is there. It's a lot of it's behind the see more, but that's where the resume comes in. And then so if you're in the market right now for a particular role, you'd put the resume up as a PDF document in the featured area, but you'd just obviously remove anything that you don't want public, because it is completely public. So I mean, I don't know who's putting date of birth on there and home addresses, but
sure,
make sure that's not there.
Sure. My wife's question for you, and my wife has had many careers, and she's become the top at most of these careers. So she was a producer back in the day, and she worked under Australia's best producer. So 20 years of her life was in the film industry, and she did really well in that. And then she went, okay, that's enough for me. I'm going to become a lawyer now in her late 30s. And then so she went to uni and became a lawyer, and then practiced law, and she was in the courts. And now she is into ancient history. So what she does now, she works for a mining company, but she always says, it's not who I am, it's what I do. And so now she's got this mining, she's worked her way up in the mining industry. So she said to me, can you ask Jo, is it preferable to have 3 different profiles on LinkedIn? Even though she doesn't do film anymore, she still gets film questions on her profile now, people messaging her about that. So I said, for me, it's like a resume. If you're going to I would rather have 3 than bring all of them into one. So she said to me, I've got a profile now, but there's a paragraph there about law and what I did in law. So it's not based on that. It's about mining, because that's where the recruitment is now for her in her industry. So I said, preferably probably 3 different LinkedIns, or would you suggest have one main page and then separate little paragraphs of what she'd done in the past?
Well, I don't know if you've read the user agreement, and I always bring this up because I'm one of those people that does read it. You should only have one profile. And if you have multiple, firstly, it confuses people, because if someone's searching for you by name and they find 3 of you and they can see it through by the photo, they're going to know which one are we looking at.
Sure.
So that would be confusing. And also LinkedIn, if you've got multiple profiles, they can penalize you.
Is that right?
Yeah, so I probably wouldn't do that, because it's a bit risky. And like I said, more
interesting,
but more for the confusion part. So how, I often get this, particularly when people change careers, how do you represent that? So in the history, as in the experience, it's sort of tucked away. It becomes like a concertina. So you put your older stuff down the bottom, and with the description, rather than having, your whole job description in there, I'd just scrap that and maybe just put the transferable skills. It shows your journey and your pathway. So, I mean, I'm just thinking, if you're in the film industry, then you go into law. I mean, there's lots of things that would, you take from one industry
to qualities
and then law into mining. I mean, that's another unique pathway, and taking the aspects of law. Now, one thing I did that was a bit cheeky, but this is how I dealt with it. Now, LinkedIn has only been around since 2003. So before that, I couldn't mention anything about social media or LinkedIn. So what I did some sort of reverse tactic. So in my previous job, I've actually stated, before I was a LinkedIn specialist, I did blah, 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 blah.
Oh, okay.
So I'm actually mentioning the keyword because keywords matter on LinkedIn in terms of search. So I'm putting those words in authentically, conversationally, but I'm using them, in the right places. But before it was really a thing.
Sure.
Because sometimes you'll see people, they'll change the name of their role previously and say something like, social media expert in 1999. I think, what social media platform were you an expert in back then?
Friendster or something.
I don't think social media was really a term back then.
No.
So it's inauthentic. But if you do it in a way where you actually use the word in a sentence,
It's smart.
Yeah.
It's smart. I didn't realize they were around since 2003.
Yeah, that's when they first started.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And what do you think is the main difference between LinkedIn, the old LinkedIn, and what it is today?
Oh gosh, it's evolved so much. I started using it probably about 2007, 2008. And I remember the person who told me to get on LinkedIn. So when you asked me about my journey, I didn't just wake up and think, I want to be a LinkedIn expert. I was actually I've always used social media because social media tied into my need to help people connect. So I was always using Facebook. Before that, it was Friends Reunited, which is a school friends platform to keep in touch with people in the UK, and then LinkedIn. One of my peers I work with said, you need to be on LinkedIn. It's a great tool. So I started using it for job purposes or just career purposes. But back then it was an online resume. It was just a place. It was kind of like, there was a platform which was like a virtual Rolodex called Plexo, I think it was called.
Okay.
Yes. And then it became like that. So it was your online resume plus Plexo, which is this database of people, like your Rolodex. And then, job ads became part of it. And then you started being able to post content. And eventually they said, they added in company pages. So all these features kept getting layered on.
Sure.
And often they are behind the other platforms in terms of functionality. But I think they just watch and see how it works and then think, how can we adapt that to career, business focus, professional focus? Yeah.
Because it's quite big. Even in my wife's industry now, for BHP, they're all led to LinkedIn. So they communicate through LinkedIn. All the mining company, Rio Tinto, will often scout people through LinkedIn in that way. So it's become very powerful for her. So I often see her updating her LinkedIn in different skills and things like that she's doing. So it's actually, for me, it's a platform I'd like to use more in a way of sharing as well as building relationships. Because right now, all my relationships are coming through Instagram and stories and reels. So a lot of my listeners are becoming listeners because of the short ads I do. Like I'll work this into a snippet and I'll put it on reels. Yeah. And and hashtags are very important. And I'll get all my listeners through that way. But yet for some reason, no one's watching. So YouTube, even though I do all the videos, I put them up on YouTube. Not many people watch them. It depends on who they are. But I've got a lot of listeners for the short amount of podcasts I've done. But a guy said to me who makes a living off YouTube, he makes a fortune on YouTube. And he said to me, keep doing YouTube. Keep doing it. One, it's just a nice visual reference for you and your guests to have. But also, it took him 3 years for his YouTube channel to take off. And he was posting, Jo, every day.
Yeah.
So he's a travel show, and he was posting every day for something like 20 views, 30 views, and it was so much work. Yeah. And he said when it came to 3 years, they were about to quit, and suddenly he did this series in Turkey, and it just took off.
Yeah.
So he said, Wayne, it's just a nice visual reference. And if you enjoy doing it, just keep doing the video side. And so I'm sticking with it, even though some other people are like, just focus in on the listener side of things, which if it was, I could do Skype. I can do Zoom calls. I can do just a phone. I can do phone-ins from all around the world. Yeah. But I like to have this. I like to sit down opposite someone and do that. So I think one of my things from Facebook is a guy said to me, the last guest I had on, Pete Griffiths, he said, Facebook do not like links. So if you're going to post to Facebook, do a page, but upload separately to Facebook and upload separately to YouTube, and your algorithm will do a lot better in that way. And that's why my question before, is it the same with LinkedIn?
Yeah. Well, it's same but different. But like I said, it's where it's appearing. Yeah. I mean, the only long form video that can work on LinkedIn is LinkedIn Live. And that's a newish, it's been around for a couple of years now, but they've rolled it out to the creator community now. So when you turn on this thing called creator mode, it's for people who are sharing content and building an audience rather than a network. So two different things.
Do you know, how long has that been around for?
Creator mode, about a year, but it's only rolled out to the general population over the last few months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's fairly new.
I saw it today.
Yeah, okay.
And how I saw it today was through one of your videos.
Okay, yeah.
So I was watching one of your videos and it came up with creator mode.
Yeah.
You spoke about creator mode and I was like, is that the same as YouTube? Because we have Creator Studio.
Yeah.
And so that's something I've got to look into, because that's probably what I will use to build the audience a bit more.
Yeah, and so going back to, and I think you mentioned before, a difference between followers and contacts or connections.
That's right.
So you've got very different types of audiences. So traditionally, the way LinkedIn works, you'd have connections. I'd send a connection request to you or vice versa. I'd accept. We're now first level connections. We're in each other's network. We're subscribed to each other's content by default. That's how it works. Now, when creator mode came out, it's about building an audience. Now, an audience is one way. A connection is two way. So when you follow somebody, like my profile by default has a follow button, which means anybody can follow me. They're not waiting for me to take an action, say yes or no. And they essentially then they're subscribed to my updates, my content, whatever it is. So it's geared towards content creators, like I said. So if you're a person that's not putting yourself out there yet on LinkedIn, don't turn it on. There's no point, because now you're making it difficult for people to connect to you. You can still do it. It's behind the more button, but it's not up front anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's that. Now, the other thing you can do, another type of audience you've got is subscribers. So with creator mode comes, so you've got LinkedIn Live, which allows you to live stream. And they've just introduced a brand new feature to kind of take on Twitter Spaces and Clubhouse called LinkedIn Audio. So essentially you launch an event and it's an audio. It's like a live podcast, a live interview. So you could probably use that. But it's not recorded at this point. It's live and then it disappears.
Oh, okay.
So I've done a couple mainly to test the water, but I would like to be able to get that file and use it. Whereas on LinkedIn Live, you download the file, you can repurpose it, put it out, in snippets, put it on YouTube, put it on other platforms. So the other feature you've got is newsletters, which sounds really boring. I mean, who likes newsletters? But it's just a distribution mechanism for your longer form content. And with a newsletter, you get subscribers. So you can have an audience that's not connected to you. They're not following you, but they subscribe to your newsletter. Okay. And in your newsletter, you might embed your LinkedIn Live, your video on YouTube, your podcast. So it's another distribution mechanism for your content. So for instance, if LinkedIn was not your primary platform in terms of your strategy, but you're there because you want to be found, you want to be credible, you might turn creator mode on because you're building an audience and you want to have content to establish that credibility. So there's different reasons to turn it on. Depends on your objective.
Sure, but for someone like me, it would be... Yeah. So
absolutely.
There is because it came up today, is there a button that you've got to look for in Creator, or you just type it in the search and...
No, it's a button on your profile. So you go to your profile and you're in edit mode. And if you sort of scroll down past the top intro section, there's a panel and it says creator mode, and you click into it and turn it on essentially. And then you'll see what's available, whether you've got LinkedIn Live. Now, if you turn it on too early, you won't have some of the features, because you've got to have, I'm going to say 150 followers or something. It's quite low. Okay. Most people would qualify, but yeah, I'm just trying to think if that's the right number, because they've changed it recently. But if you don't have the feature, just focus on building your network and then turn it on. Yeah.
Like I said, I've been with LinkedIn for years and years and years. So I think I don't know how many followers and connects I get. But right now I'm just getting every day, I'm getting people inviting or wanting to be a contact.
Yeah.
Because they want to edit for me. And a lot of them are from India for some reason. And I'm like, no, that's fine. I keep research. So, but I would like to attract some other contacts coming through. So I think I have to be a bit more proactive in order to connect with people that I want to connect with.
Well, there's that, but there's also how your profile's positioned. So if you've got podcast somewhere on your profiles, it's all very, very much keyword driven. Now, I have podcast on my profile. I don't have my own podcast right now. I had one years ago and decided it was too much hard work.
Jo,
Yeah.
you'd be great.
Oh, it's just a lot of work. We called it the social truth, and we were demystifying lots of myths, debunking things around social media in general. I did it with a colleague here in Perth. It was fun, but we didn't have a big audience, and we probably quit before we really gave it.
Yeah.
Just like you said about YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, YouTube, I stop and start as well. And I did this whole YouTube acceleration program and thought, right, I'm going to give it a good go. And then I dropped the ball again because it was just, a lot of effort when you look at all the things you've got to do.
There is an effort.
So now I'm picking up it again because for me, it's worthwhile because it's credibility building, it's brand building. People can connect to you a lot better than they can through other mediums.
I suppose probably new audiences too.
Yeah.
That are just scrolling through LinkedIn. I just typed in today, what is LinkedIn? And a whole pile. And would you believe a lot of them were Australian from Sydney talking about LinkedIn as well. Yep. I was going to say, do you guys have like LinkedIn meetups?
As in the people that specialize in like, fellow nerds like me. We do.
Nerds are a cool term now, Jo.
I know. I love it.
So you're bragging about yourself.
Yeah. LinkedIn nerd, LinkedIn, what's the other one? Geek? I don't know. Geek, nerd. It was a battle. Which one was a cooler word? I don't know. But we nerd out together. That's, so there's nothing formal. I mean, and this is where I think there's a massive opportunity for LinkedIn. LinkedIn don't have formal trainers. So sometimes people say to me, do you work for LinkedIn? No, I don't. I'm an independent trainer, which is actually a good thing because I'm about the user and not the platform. So I will never sell the platform to you unless it's beneficial to you and your purpose. So in the sense of meetups, yes, but we kind of coordinate them. So I handpick people that I like, people I learn from, people I respect and admire. And there's two particular ladies. We just have to be females. One's in Brisbane, one's in Sydney, and we actually collaborate and run events together. And we also sort of knowledge share and support each other and that sort of stuff. But here in Perth, there was a guy who was doing LinkedIn. He's moved on to do other things now, but we actually started an event together 5 years ago, and we are competition on the ground. I mean, Perth's not a massive place. I mean, I believe in the abundance mentality. I mean, there's so much work around, but we collaborated on an event as well and supported each other. Until we moved on to doing other things.
It's a big part of social media. It's collaboration.
Absolutely.
I think with podcasting, it's quite easy because our audiences now combine. Sort of my audiences. Like I had a friend the other day say, I would never listen to an hour conversation on hunting, but I did, and it wasn't about hunting animals as such. It was the psychology behind the process. So. All of a sudden, he's massive on social media, especially TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. He's massive on TikTok. So all of a sudden, my Facebook audience, and would you believe he doesn't have a YouTube? I said, you've got to start a YouTube channel. And his Facebook, suddenly I'd put these videos up, and our audiences, now my audiences that I don't really have a specific audience. Like I've got you on today. I had a hunter and an athlete. So, but yet it's nice because your audiences now will sort of hopefully come and go, I'm going to listen to Jo speak for an hour. And you'd be surprised how many people listen to us for an hour that don't know us. Like there's audiences in Belgium and Mexico. And I'm thinking, isn't technology fantastic?
I love it. And I love the time delay. Like I'm often interviewed on podcasts. So that's why I've got the podcast reference on my profile. I've got podcast guest. And sometimes people get in touch and say, I'm a podcast editor, or they ask me something they haven't actually read my profile. But when I'm a guest on people's podcasts, like 6 months, a year later, someone will connect to me on LinkedIn and say, I loved your podcast with this person. I love the takeaways. And you think, gosh, that was ages ago. But they're listening to it now. They've just discovered it. And it's great. I love it.
Especially long form. Before it was like short videos. And it's surprising how many people give up an hour of their day to listen to two people they don't know. And that was a big thing for me. It was never about me, and it was never even about Jo Saunders. It was about our conversation.
Yeah.
Why people tune in. Yeah. Or I should say why people engage and stay. And I love that. It's and I normally tell guests that to get rid of their nerves, because I get a lot of guests that come through and they're so nervous before they start. And I'm like, it's not about you and it's not about me. It's just about our conversation. Yeah. And that's why I don't give questions.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want it to turn into an interview, me interviewing Jo Saunders.
Because then if it's an interview, and I actually wouldn't do this because I don't work that way, but because I run a show on LinkedIn Live, so that's my kind of podcast version, but visual. I did it for quite a while, then I had a break. So I was just interviewing people and we'd pick a topic and we'd just talk. But with LinkedIn Live, there are some visual cues. So to make it to frame it, and people who are tuning in and out, during the live stream, I've actually got things on the screen to say what we're talking about. But, I don't, so they get the question, the broad question that's going to be on screen, but then we'll go off on a tangent.
The broad strokes,
else.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's purely for visual. But, I love conversations with people because I think it becomes very organic and natural. But I've had guests where I've sent them the questions and they've come back with the answers. And I think, I hope you're not going to read those answers now because that's not engaging, but that actually helps me now repurpose this as a blog because now I've got some actual text. So
that's smart.
It's actually useful.
That is very smart.
Yeah.
And your live events, is that a big part of your income? That's the main part of your income now? Because I see you speaking in front of people all the time. Do you get called? Is it getting busier for you?
Yeah, I mean, most of my work is training. So, I do a bit of speaking, as in, like keynote speaking, but not as much. I mean, COVID obviously put a bit of a stop on that. And I didn't evolve to have a studio at home. I mean, some of the people I know that speak, they've got immaculate studios with all the technology and, switching and, one of these magic desks here.
This is for dummies. Don't let the buttons put you off.
But you have to know what to do. It looks impressive. I've just bought a Stream Deck. The very small, simple version, and I've used it once so far.
See, I don't know anything about that.
Oh, okay. Well, it's like that, but it's just got little buttons with, I think they even have pictures on. So press that button for this view. You can use it with OBS.
Oh, okay.
But I don't use the OBS. I've just bought it because it looked fun. It's got buttons on it.
Yeah. So your version of podcasts, are you thinking about actually doing a specific podcast for yourself? Or is it more what you're doing on LinkedIn Live at the moment?
Well, it's funny because when I work with clients, so my client base, I either work with organizations or I work with individuals. And the individuals tend to be people that are experts in their field. They've been around for a while. They've got a book. They might be speaking on the topic. And I often say to them, how do you prefer to create your content? And if people are comfortable doing video or they want to have a podcast, I always say to them, use LinkedIn Live because then you've got this visual. You've got that particular, there's a piece of media you can repurpose, but you can download the audio and maybe turn that into a podcast. So if you have the vision of podcast first. Also, I've got another colleague he's actually interviewed me for his podcast a year ago. He hasn't published it yet. He hasn't even started. So I don't know, he hasn't quite got there because I think he's overcomplicated it. And I said to him, why don't you use LinkedIn Live? Because you go live, it's live. There's no production. There's no, I'm not ready yet. And all the things, it actually just makes you do it.
When you say live, I know what you're saying, but how would this work in LinkedIn Live? Would both of these cameras have to be connected into the computer for LinkedIn to have both of us? Or is it easier just with one camera and you and I sitting next to each other talking?
Well, two cameras, I've not done that. That's a bit more complicated. I'm sure you can do it, but you'd have to be a techie person. So you'd probably be able to, work out where to go. So
I'm just like you, Jo. Don't put too much confidence. I'm a writer.
I mean, people do lots of cool stuff. So it's about understanding the software that you need to make that happen. So the software I tend to use, it's called StreamYard. There's Stream Deck and there's StreamYard. Don't get them mixed up. But I use it because it's a one-stop shop platform. You plug in all your bits and pieces. It's all branded, and you just click the button and the display, and you're looking at your camera. I mean, and for the most part, I do it with people virtually. So I'm sitting here, you're sitting in your office somewhere else.
Oh,
so it's not this. Now, if you wanted to do this version, you'd obviously have to have your camera. So it's either the camera's, I don't know, wide and we're both looking at the camera, because rather than looking at each other, we'd be looking at the audience, because we're having a conversation with them, not us.
Sure. Okay.
So it's a different setup.
I'll look into that because it sounds interesting. And you, what's the time limit on that? Is there a time limit?
That's a really good question. Is there a maximum? You could probably I've seen people do one-day events on live stream, and they've just handed over the banner to somebody else to take over. So,
but you need a live streaming platform to work with LinkedIn. LinkedIn don't have their own.
No, so it's not like Facebook or even Twitter or Instagram, where you can just go live on the platform. No, you can't. I suspect they'll be bringing that in though, because it makes sense for them to have that ability. But right now you have to use a third-party tool, which obviously costs money. you know, there are free versions, but then you've got the branding of the platform. So there's that.
Oh, okay. You
So
said StreamYard.
StreamYard's my go-to. I mean, that's the one
Okay.
I'm using because I like
Have a
it.
look.
There's another one called Restream, which is apparently quite good as well. So, you know, they're pretty good. And with the platforms, you can multi-stream. So we can go live and do an interview, and we can go live to LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Yeah, it used to be Periscope, but, you know.
I remember that. I started on that, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember telling my friends, oh, we'd just have this, we'd go on holiday and we'd talk about the holiday, and I'd say, okay, we're on Periscope, it's going to be live, and no one wanted to go on. I don't know, people get nervous when it's live and they'd all turn away.
Yeah.
And now they're all doing it with Facebook. It's
Yeah.
become this thing now where it's acceptable to go live, and before it was a privacy thing and they didn't want to be on camera. It's funny how things change over time.
Absolutely.
It's like in our day, turning a camera around on yourself when you're a teenager.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, you get beaten up.
And now, I mean, you know, particularly young people, they're in a selfie. It's just that's just how they communicate with each other.
That's how they communicate. And they don't feel shy putting a camera up and dancing in front of it.
No, I mean, gosh, I'd be embarrassed. I mean, and I'm really awkward taking selfies. So if I'm out somewhere and I'll say, we should take a selfie, and we have to actually announce it firstly, and then we'll go, okay, who's going to hold it? Who's got the longest arm? Who can be really awkward? And then I eventually say, let's just get a helpie.
A helpie.
Which is a good old-fashioned photo. Oh, you're over there. Could you help us? Yes.
Yeah,
like
that is so true. That is so true.
It looks nicer too. So
I know. Well, unfortunately, you and I are going to have to take a selfie that's one thing I always forget. And my wife has said to me this morning, don't forget to take a selfie, because I always like to have something between me and you.
Yeah.
And then I can put that, oh, guess who's coming on, and guess who was on today.
Yeah.
And I'm always forgetting.
Yeah.
I'm always forgetting. So
because you're in the moment, yeah, in conversation, so you're not thinking about the marketing aspect and all those
no,
things.
I forget everything. And that's another discipline I had to learn, because as you know, I've told you, I'm not a technical guy. I know how to operate a still camera and a film camera, which is why I don't mind doing this, but I get asked all the time, do you have an AV guy? And I'm like, no, I'm it. But having to set the lighting, the cameras, the audio, and then suddenly just go, okay, I'm turning off and I'm just in the conversation. And when I first started, I'm thinking, is it still recording? And then I'm looking at the camera. It was a nightmare. But now I'm just so used to it and go, hey, if it's not recording, I get a conversation. And worst case scenario, I've got an audio podcast anyway. But that's a discipline, is not to think about anything when you're on your own. I've got a guy starting with me, which would be nice. But it's funny how through the years, certain things change and it's become part of my lifestyle. Like,
absolutely.
I still can't believe that I can do this and push this to any mobile phone in the world, any smart TV in the world, any computer in the world. Just knowing that you can do that today with technology. I love it. I
think it's definitely become easier. I mean, like I said, my podcast it was probably about 5 or 6 years ago now. It was before they were really cool. And it was a lot of work. Like, there was a lot of tech involved. I had to find this hosting platform and a distribution platform, and there was just and I was doing it all myself, and then my colleague would do certain aspects she'd do. And I just thought, this is just too much work for the return, so I gave it up. And I thought, then I switched my attention to YouTube, because video production for me, I just think is much easier. I don't know why.
But also I think you suit video production.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, just personality. That's probably why you do talks and things.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. There's certain people that are meant for radio. And I'm not talking in way of looks, but there's people that I would like to see. Yeah. So this is a classic example of why I don't just do audio, because I'm thinking I want people to see Jo, like I see you now and having a chat to you. But yet, unfortunately, 60,000 people will probably just listen to this anyway. But it's nice. That's why I think video podcasting you really suit.
And I did have a show with a colleague. So we called it was originally called the LinkedIn Couch. Then we decided that was too restrictive. And also branding wise, I thought, I don't want to get in trouble with LinkedIn for using their brand. So we rebadged it to the Connection Couch. And he's also in film production himself. So he was the producer. He set it all up, and then he was on the couch with me chatting. And the number of times, like, we'd be chatting and they go, oh, the red light's gone off. Oh no, quick, better fix that. And that's when you just need that extra set of hands, don't you, just to manage.
You do. And it's like walking off the plank once the podcast starts, because I've got to switch off from that. Otherwise it's, you know, you've talked to people and you know when somebody's not listening and they're thinking about other things, and there's nothing more annoying than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a discipline. Like I had to check did I push the red button on that one?
It's on. It's okay.
And I don't have the flip out screen because I do, but I don't put it out because often guests will come in there and they're like, oh my God, is that how I look?
And it's distracting. And it's like, I guess, being on a Zoom call and you're looking at yourself, and sometimes you find yourself, you're not looking at the camera, you're looking at you because you're, oh gosh, I'm frowning. Oh,
yeah,
look at my face.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I just turn that off because it's distracting to me, and I'm also not looking at the person I'm supposed to be looking at.
Sure. Do you have a little studio at home where you do your YouTube videos from?
Yes and no. I mean, I've got an office space. This is brilliant because it's all enclosed. I actually this is my dream. I want a soundproof booth. Like my youngest son went to get a hearing test the other day, and they've got those little booths you go into and close the door, and they, you know, carpeted, and I want one of those. Because it's a very open plan office.
I'll give you a tip.
Oh yeah.
The one thing that happened with this place is I paid so much to have this background.
Yeah.
And then a guy said, but you've got an echo. So can you bring in sound panels? And then I was like, I'm going to have to cover up all the sound panels, and then covering up the wallpaper. And then he said, hang it from the roof. It was all this stuff. Yeah. I was by accident. I was online, and these sound engineers developed this plugin. It cost $99, and because it's not a cheap plugin, but because it's designed by sound engineers, it's saved my life. So the podcast will not sound like this. It will sound like we're in a soundproof room.
Oh, okay.
I just put it on later.
Oh, okay.
Once the editing's done, I'll just drag the plug-in over. I'll make a few adjustments, and it's perfect. And I've spoken to sound audio engineers, and they're like, no, it sounds good. It sounds good. And I'll tell them it's a plug-in. They're like, really? Because, you know, they're so confident about their hearing skills, and they're like, well, obviously it's a good one. So I'll give you the name of that. Even if you're in an open environment, it'll sound like you're in a soundproof sort of room. So so that will get you out of a lot of trouble if you need that.
So what I do, because we've got you know, my office is upstairs, there's an open staircase, there's opening into like the laundry where the toilet is and the kitchen. So I have to I've got signs up now going recording or meeting in progress, meaning don't come upstairs and disturb me, and recording means don't make banging noises, don't flush the toilet, go
you got to take my hat off to you. You got 3 kids.
Well, they're at the age where they're studying now at TAFE or doing other. I mean, my oldest son works from home quite a lot, so they're often in the house. So they just, it's just having the extra noise, even cluttering of plates. So, and I actually have a plug-in. I used to run something on my computer, but I just found it wasn't working. So probably need to know what yours is, because I've got the podcast mic, and you set it to is it Cartoid, the one that goes forward or something like that. But you can still hear noises from the other side. And you think, okay. So I've had blankets, I've put the microphone in a box and all sorts of weird setups. So now I just leave it as it is and do my best.
Would you ever get yourself a separate little studio?
I'd love
outside.
I probably would.
Me too.
Yeah. I was even thinking of, I keep looking into things like buying a little caravan, putting it in the garden, soundproofing that. And
that's interesting.
Because a colleague of mine, she runs Barefaced Stories, and she's got the chin wagon. And it's a little cute caravan, and they take it around the countryside and interview people.
That is such an good idea.
I know. And it's just cool. I mean, it's just a really cool name too.
Yeah.
The chin wagon.
The chin wagon.
Let's have a chat. Let's have a chin wag.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like you. It would be nice also because we had to climb upstairs to get here. I've got some Vietnam veterans that could be coming on, and that's going to be a bit of a challenge because they're all in their 80s and now. So also parking. I'd like to have a place where there's a car park where people can park, but you've got to work with what you got, right?
Well, that's it. And I know, we can aim for perfection, but I go with the camera I've got is the camera that I'm going to use. And that's why I said, so a lot of my videos are filmed on my iPhone, which is a really good camera, and the sound's really good. Mm. And I've got the Rode, the little square one, the microphone, the Rode.
Oh, the The wireless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a Rode Wireless Go.
Yes, because I
They're
love
great little
I love
mics.
technology and I love little tools. Don't buy me flowers. I always tell my husband, I'm just going to buy myself this thing. And it's from you. There you go.
Thank you very much.
I know. It's like, another thing, another tripod, another whatever. Yeah.
But those Rode mics are fantastic. Like I've taken them traveling. And you could be 50 meters away from the camera and your voice is clear and you're talking about stuff. And so I was always interested to find out if someone was using them for like an on-road podcast or something. Because now you got 2 receivers.
Yeah.
And 1 transmitter. Have you got those ones?
No, I've got the original one.
Same.
Yeah, which
Same.
I couldn't quite justify upgrading yet because I'd have to be using it for a podcast or something like that.
That's right.
But I do use it. Well, when I use it, sometimes I'll use it to interview and I sort of hold it like a microphone, go, yeah, to make sure that, because you have to make sure, you've got the sound going into it, not just, wherever.
But the 2 ones, if you're constantly doing that,
Yeah.
you probably might be better off getting the 2 transmitters.
Yeah.
Putting one on me, one on you, and then 1 camera, and then it's all connected.
Yeah, no, it's a really good idea.
And it's dumb. It's like idiot proof, isn't it?
Yeah.
You basically turn them on, they sync and everything. I love that.
I always do a test though, because I remember one time using it and I don't know why, it just didn't quite connect to my phone. And I was like, so I always test. But the sound's brilliant. But the reason I bought it was so when I'm doing a presentation and I want to, organize my own video so I can put the video far away and actually get really good audio.
Yeah, sure.
Because when you do a lot of speaking, you're constantly creating content that's useful. If to share later.
That's right. And let's talk about this. I read this. I read this on. It was either on your LinkedIn or was it YouTube? But what was it? Talk to us about that.
So the book, it's called Get Good or Get Off. Which, it sounds a bit bold. A guide to getting it right on social media. So it's about social media strategy. It's not about getting off social media because you're not very good at it. It's not like saying, Wayne, you're rubbish at LinkedIn, get off. It's not that. It's about making strategic decisions. So we kind of go through the platforms, and it's about working out what's right for you and where are your audience and where can you best serve them, really. So when you think about platforms, like for my own strategy, I've got my primary, my secondary, and then my tertiary. It took me a while to work out what the third one went. What's the third? Tertiary, of course. So my primary for me is LinkedIn. That's,
Yeah.
And YouTube. Even though I've dropped the ball a few times, I've decided that should be a primary because that's where, it's so by Google, why would you not use it? And then my secondary, I think I've added TikTok in there just because I sort of think, am I missing an opportunity to give this a go? A colleague of mine is he's a TikTok influencer. Actually, he'd be someone really good to interview. He's got like 1.2 million followers.
Wow.
He's here in Perth. He does some great stuff. He's a really tall guy and he does these videos where he's in a supermarket and asking someone to help him get the stuff from the bottom shelf because he's too tall. I just find that amusing. I mean, he's got some other stuff he does, but that he's got this kind of humor happening. But he's sort of challenged me to use TikTok. So every now and again I'll get on there, but I'm not consistent with it. And Facebook's coming down the bottom. Because it's just become less important. But if I'm not, I'd love to close it down, as in my business page. But I have to be there because people will say, I need help with LinkedIn in a group on Facebook. And if I'm not there, I can't be tagged.
I agree. I'm exactly like you. A lot of my posts on Facebook is connected because of Instagram.
Yeah.
And I know they're owned by the same people, but a lot of my Instagram's connected, so often the posts will get transferred across.
Yeah.
But I have started uploading to Facebook, but I don't know. It's one of those things. I don't use private Facebook for a lot now. It's mainly Messenger. People will send me messages, but it's just very rare that I get onto Facebook and I use it or even scroll through it. On Instagram, a lot more. That's why a lot of people were saying to me, how come you're not on TikTok? I just have never gone on TikTok. And I'm sure because everyone's saying you get a really good audience on there.
Yeah.
I just haven't experimented with it yet.
And you've got the content to go. It's just, it comes at time coming down to resources. Do you have the time and resources to manage it? And that's mainly my issue. Because if you're creating video, you're creating audio, you've got stuff to put out there.
That's right.
And it's, for me, I really don't like TikTok. I don't look at it. I find it super annoying. There's too much. You go in there, it's like, rah, all these people shouting at you and pointing and dancing and, it's horrible. But I guess you got to realize, where are your audience? And for me, I mean, I'm not convinced my audience are there. That's the thing. If my audience were like, if I wanted to just work with young people, like students and graduates, absolutely, I would be on TikTok. And yeah, I do work with those people, but it's not my primary audience.
I think
know?
YouTube and LinkedIn, like you said, using LinkedIn Live and YouTube, that would be where your audience will be.
Yeah.
But who knows? I heard an interesting stat about TikTok. They said that the feed of TikTok in Western countries, such as the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, you'll notice that whenever you go on TikTok, you'll get stupid things by stupid people and tits and ass and, guys. But yet in China, their feeds are full of science.
Okay.
Achievements.
That'd be quite interesting then.
Well, it's almost like the Chinese are dumbing down everyone else. Yeah. But yet if their kids go on, their kids are getting a completely different feed of a lot of it is astrology, astronomy, science, people achieving things. So their kids are getting groomed in a very different way to the kids that are in Australia and United Kingdom, United States that go on TikTok. How interesting is that?
Very interesting, yeah.
So that's the one thing when I was listening to all of that, I've sort of taken a step back. But then again, I don't know where my audience comes from many different things. If I have on a young influencer, then it could go on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, but I have on an athlete, Instagram. Instagram seems to be, I don't know much more than Instagram at the moment and YouTube. So maybe TikTok, I don't know, but everyone that I know, that knows me and what I do, they're like, why don't you put your snippets on TikTok? I don't know.
You probably need a young marketing student that wants to get some experience and, challenge them to build your brand. You want to become an influencer on TikTok and off you go, make it happen.
Yeah, that's an idea.
Could be a fun challenge because it comes down to strategy, as I said. So for me, I'm really clear at what my platforms are for. So LinkedIn's my professional network. It's where I build credibility and relationships. Facebook, I use my personal Facebook more. My page is just there. Don't really use that.
So you do have a personal page?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
and I don't use it as much as LinkedIn, but I use it if I'm asking a question, and I usually ask a loaded question because I want some feedback. And it's great because my network there are people I know. Whereas LinkedIn, there's people I know, people who know me, and people who are connections of connections. Sure. So it's a broader audience. But Facebook is the people I actually know. So silly things like I've got a headache. I've had a headache for 3 days. I remember doing this one time going, who's got a solution for a persistent headache? People love solving problems. And those posts will go nuts.
On Facebook?
Yeah. Because my personal network want to help. They want to help me. And they want to be seen to be helping whatever their objective is. And then every now and again, I'll ask a question about something slightly related to my business and what I do. Yeah.
I might do that now.
Yeah.
Ask some loaded questions like, what guests would you like to have on, or would you like to see on my podcast or something
or
like
even
that?
Topics. What topics would be interesting? And you could give them a few options, would it be astrophysics or, I don't know, some construction of something and
interior design
or something else.
I wouldn't mind an interior designer because I love, certain stupid things attract me on YouTube. I love looking at interior design videos.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my time goes into things like, how did they do, what's their style and what are they doing and how do they, what shapes make this and that work in a house. So yeah, I'd love to get on an interior designer after a while. Yeah. But how long did it take you to do this book?
Well, I wrote it in a weekend. We spoke it and then the editing process took 6 months. But the concept was there, so it was just fine tuning it and making it make sense, and get rid of all the so's and the ands and the extra words that you put in there, and then that's repeated there. That's
what we do here, podcasting. We've done really well so far.
Yeah.
Before I go on, I always have a list. Don't say this, because I have a habit of saying for example, and I say it all the time. So before the podcast, before you came, I'm just running a list of things, but that's how you get better.
Absolutely.
So it's the same as editing a book, I suppose, taking out all the adjectives.
And actually, one of the best things you can do, I think, when you're speaking and training is video yourself speaking and training. And I remember doing this in the early days, and it's really uncomfortable to do that to yourself, to put yourself on video. And I would say, I don't speak with my hands. I'm not that person. And then you watch the video and your hands are flapping around and you're like, oh, well, that wasn't, I wasn't aware of that. And now I am. Now I can fix it. So as uncomfortable as it can be, it's actually good to do these things.
See, I'm glad you said that because I taught that at TAFE.
Yeah.
Because after your daughter came through, I was teaching social media in mass communications.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that I learned while doing this was, if I'm editing a video of this and audio. So I'm hearing all the habits, the personal habits from guests and myself specifically.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't like the sound of their own voice.
Yeah.
It's because they don't hear it often.
And you don't hear it this close, do you?
That's right.
And I remember listening to someone talk about this, why we don't like our voice. It might have been a TED talk about it.
I think I heard that.
It just made so much sense. I thought, absolutely. You're hearing it from, projected that way, and suddenly it's here. You go, oh,
That's right.
that sounds different.
But the more you listen, like I'm editing an hour every week, there was a time where, because it happened so much, suddenly the Wayne on the video became a separate entity to me.
Yeah.
So it was so good, because the minute that happened, I wasn't so judgmental on that person.
Yeah.
I was just editing the conversation of that person. So when it came to students, funny enough, students love doing the dance and they love doing the selfie photos, but actually sit down and have a conversation on a YouTube video, they found that very hard, would you believe? So what I did is I got them to do something ridiculous, like 60 vlogs, videos over the course of the year. And I said, you've just got to turn the camera on
absolutely.
and talk. And the first 3 months was horrible. But I said to them, you've got to expect that. Don't make it perfect. But all it was an exercise. The more they do it, the more comfortable they become. And you know what it did, Jo? It something happened with their confidence. Their confidence and their self-worth just suddenly started to rise up.
Yeah.
Unconsciously, because they were accepting now who this person was by seeing this person, editing this person. And that was the whole exercise of why I did so many, because a lot of the lecturers are like, it's way too much.
Yeah.
And I said, yes, but I'm not after perfection in the videos. I'm wanting the students to be more comfortable with expression.
It's a habit, isn't it? It's getting comfortable with it. So when I first started doing video, so my colleague Reg and I, we had the YouTube show of The Connection Couch. But before we did that, he used to do all my professional videos, and, he'd give me the script process, which I'd write a script and you try to memorize it. You can see yourself memorizing it because you're in your head going, oh, what's next? Then I started doing dot points, and then you look away and go, okay, that's what I'm going to say next. And it was hideous. But then I started, when Facebook introduced live, one of my other colleagues had this 30-day live challenge on Facebook. So I participated, and every day you had to go live.
Wow.
And
That's cool.
at first, I think I set my audience to just my friends or something, and then I just did it. And she shared her story. So she and a colleague, to get comfortable on video, she taped her phone to a tree. I don't know why she's taping it to a tree, but obviously she didn't have a tripod back then, and just kept going. Exactly what you just said. Repetition, and to get comfortable. And then you can do stuff. I mean, it's like speaking in public on stage. Right. It's a horrible experience at first. It's just, you got to go through that though. And eventually you just learn to go with it. And what I've learned is, now this sounds a bit weird. So I started doing some speaker training, as you do. And then I decided to do improv. Now, improv, I hate role play. It makes me really uncomfortable. And I don't like acting or anything like that, or comedy. But every year I've been doing some really uncomfortable things just to stretch myself. So I did improv, and I reckon that's the best speaker training you can do.
It's a great skill.
It is, because what you learn is it's not about what you say, it's the ability to adapt to what's happening in front of you. So I think anybody who sort of says, oh, I'd love to do professional speaking, or I'd love to actually speak on a stage.
Improv.
Yeah, go and do some improv and just get comfortable with the uncomfortable and doing weird things and walking around a room swearing at yourself while you're trying to do two things. And, the teacher was telling us to swear every time we stuffed up. We used an F word really loudly, which was really weird and liberating at the same time. But you got comfortable, and then eventually you just do stuff. So when I speak now, I mean, I can trip over something, I can make up a word, I can forget lose my place, and I don't stress. I just go, oh, right. I was going to say something. Where was I going with this? And then someone will remind me, or I'll just go, you know what? It wasn't important. Let's move on.
But it teaches you the most valuable lesson, and that is to listen. Because you're not rehearsing a response because you don't know what's going to be said.
No.
So you're reacting truthfully in that imaginary circumstance.
Yeah.
So listening is the biggest skill to have, to actually sit there and listen without working out a rebuke or an argument or whatever, just listening and then pushing a conversation forward. So that was my biggest thing with improv, is being able to not manipulate, that's a wrong word, but to push a conversation where you want it to go.
Yeah.
And listen.
Yeah.
And respond naturally. You're responding naturally to that. And I think podcasting's, that's why I don't like rehearsals in podcasting.
This is improv. I mean, this is the
improv.
ultimate improv. I mean, my presentations, most of them, I'll say they're improv, and people look at me and it's not that I'm unorganized. And this is why events, I have a run sheet. I know I've got an event plan for a session plan for my training. But often I go off on a tangent because I'm reading the room, I'm relating to what's in the audience, and then we'll go back to the agenda. That's what my slides are for. My slides are essentially to make sure that we cover the key information.
But that's a good public speaker there.
And also the visual. Like there's some great speakers, and there's one particular guy that has been one of my mentors, and he can speak off the cuff. He's brilliant, and he engages the room and he moves around, but he doesn't use slides. So, good thing. But I said to him from a marketing point, I said, can you actually have one slide with your brand on it? So when I'm at the back of the room taking your photo, there's something there. So I said, I think you need it for that, but I love that you have no slides.
Yeah, I think one fault for a lot of speakers is they put too much on their slides.
Oh, yeah.
So the audience just start reading rather than listening to the person speaking about it.
Yeah.
And that's a keynote. Whenever you deliver a keynote, that's one thing we were always told. Just put block points, but you've got to talk about it. So
that's right.
Too much up there, they'll just read it and they won't take in what you're saying.
And it's also, like I said, for me, it's an agenda. It just makes sure I know where I'm going, but then the journey goes along and we go back to that, and the next slide kind of takes us back to where we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
So, and when you do training, and you probably have done this in your lecturing, if you get a question that's completely off topic, you just park it and go, great question, let's talk about that later.
Yeah.
And it's just how you deal with that.
And you always get those questions.
Totally. And I love those questions because they get me thinking, and also it's like, oh, that'd make a great blog, that'd make a good whatever.
Yeah.
But then I forget it. So I've learned to, when I'm speaking, just to do a voice recording so that I can go back and go,
okay, what
was that thing? Or I'll say something, and then I've got this thing, I sort of step aside and go, that was great. And like I'll come up with some weird quote and I go, that was a really good quote, I must remember that for later. But I'm actually saying that so that the audio, I can go, I must remember that for later.
That's your mark on the audio.
Totally. And I'm just being really daggy and fun in the room. People just think I'm, because I'm just really, I guess, real. I'm myself. I don't pretend to be someone I'm not.
That's why people come and see you.
Yeah. And I think
you got to know, it's not just because you're a LinkedIn influencer and expert. It's also people come see you because of Jo, because of who you are. They can go to many other LinkedIn people and experts on YouTube. And I think it comes down to who is giving that information across. What's their personality like? Can you sit in this room for an hour listening to this person?
Yeah.
Because we've all sat in rooms with people that we just think, oh my God, I've got an hour with this person.
And they're reading their slides.
They're reading their slides.
All the text on the slides.
Very academic. They're not communicating at all. And unfortunately, it's in a lot of professions too. My wife was talking about law, and she said that most of the law professors, they were lawyers, but they just could not part information.
Yeah.
It was just very hard.
And it's really sad because that person's a genius in their space, and they've just been, I suppose, told that this is how they should present.
Yeah.
And it's just, no, get people discussing stuff and,
that's right,
doing stuff.
That's right. So what's next for Jo Saunders?
Oh, gosh.
What have you got coming up?
Well, my next book I'm writing is called Connectfluence. So going back to, it's everything I've ever done that I've loved is about connection. And the other thing is influence. Now, influence, I believe everybody has influence. I don't like the term social media influencer. I think that's a made-up thing personally. And it's not really, it's not sustainable. So influence is about a thing that you have. So Connectfluence is a word I came up with a couple of years ago. I was in this mastermind program. I was telling someone what I do. And I said something like, I help people connect and have influence. Connectfluence. Went, oh, that's it. That's the word I've been looking for years.
It's a good word. Yeah.
And so I trademarked it, of course, as you do. And so I use it a lot. So it's the name of my methodology. It's the name of my book that I'm writing. It's the name of my online program. So I help people connect and have influence, which gives them impact, whatever it is they're trying to do. So LinkedIn's a vehicle. It's not what I do, which is why I'm not that tied into LinkedIn. But what I love to do is getting to know people like this, getting to know what makes them tick and look for their quirks and celebrate them. So
that's the one thing I've taken away, what you told me outside. I look for people's quirks because that's what makes them interesting.
And if someone says to me, you're very quirky, I go, thank you. That's a huge
It
compliment.
is.
You know,
It is.
where some people go, oh, quirky, is that bad? It's like, no, I want to know what else do you do, and bring that into who you are. Because if you're a lawyer or an engineer or whatever it is, and then someone else is a lawyer, well, you've probably got the same credentials. But go back to your wife. I mean, she comes from she brings a different lens to it, and now she's got another lens she's bringing in, and her experience, and all that together makes her unique.
I think it's important with the LinkedIn description of yourself.
Yeah.
Because I remember my wife went to a seminar in BHP, and they spoke about that in LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And they said, don't make it all this professional thing. They want to know who is the person behind these qualifications.
Yeah.
So make it a bit personal.
Yeah.
Like, take it up. She told me that, which is why I went back into LinkedIn and I just redid my little description on who I was and what led me to what I was doing today.
Yeah. That's how people connect, like your discovery story or your why, the why behind what you do. And a lot of people don't know that, or they've never thought about it. And I didn't think about it probably until I don't know, 9 years ago. And I thought it was something else, but as you look, and one thing I did, like I said, is look back at all the jobs I've had in the past, the things I didn't like, and then the things I've done and I did like, and the projects I got involved with. Like when I was probably about 10, I created the Action Mind Club for my brother, who was 2 years younger than me, and I used to like making things out of paper and sticky tape, and I cut things up, and I made him this whole membership kit. So see, I was born to run a club.
Fantastic.
So in the UK, the letterbox is in the front door. There's a little slit. Yeah. So I'd make this package and I'd write his name on the front, run around the front of the house, post it. I go, Mark, the postman's been. And I did the same for my sister. I created a Barbie club. Some of the copyright issues there, but my dodgy drawings. And they were so excited to get this package that they believe actually was legit, even though it's all handwritten.
But the feeling you got from watching that.
Totally. It was brilliant.
You.
And I thought, and then I had all the people in my street, all the kids. One of the girls had a shed in the garden, and we loved Secret 7, Famous 5. We had a clubhouse. We were solving mysteries and
all that
sort of stuff. So I think I was just born to have a club. So even now, I run this event called LinkedIn Local Perth, which it's kind of my little club.
You did one recently.
Yeah, this week on Wednesday.
Yeah, I was looking at the video on what you covered.
Yeah. Okay. So you're probably one of the first people to see because I only just released it.
Yeah, there was four views. I think I was the 5th view or something.
Yeah, it was just a bit of I thought I'd do a summary about it, and then we've got the video footage of actually presenting, so that'll be repurposed as well.
And it went well.
Yeah, because it's a discussion. I mean, what I've learned is it's not about the person in the room, and this is what I tell people. I mean, I'm there facilitating the conversation, and yeah, you can pick my brain and get my expertise about certain things, but I love learning from, you'll ask me a question and something I've not thought of. And oh, wow, that's really interesting. Oh, I don't know. How does that apply on LinkedIn? And then I'll start creating content around that. So I just love that. I don't need to be the expert. And I think that's what I've realized. You don't need to know everything. So
you don't. When
I first started doing public speaking, I did some speaker training. My biggest fear was, what if I can't answer a question? I should, as a speaker.
So you don't know the answer.
And that's the most liberating thing when you realize you don't have to.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and I love throwing it back. Oh, what do you guys think? Does anybody know this?
Yeah.
Because I'm really curious now.
Yeah.
And I think that might be refreshing for people, because there are people who will pretend they know the answer. And I've done some communication training with a friend, and the biggest thing I got from him was when people say think, I think, blah, blah, blah. Or if I asked you a question about something, I catch my husband doing this, I'll say, you don't know. You just said, I think. Because he's done the training too. They say, well, I think it's blah, blah. You go, okay, that's your opinion now. It's actually not
true,
an actual fact. And people often present their opinion as fact.
That's right.
Whereas I will say, well, this is what I believe. I might say think, but I'll be more obvious about it. That this is what I think, but it could be something else. Other people might do it this way, but this is the way I do it.
It's like the whole coin. It's what side of the coin you're seeing is what's real.
Yeah, exactly.
And there may be something completely different on the other side of the coin,
Yeah.
in that way. So if people want to find you, where would you lead them to?
Well, just Google me.
Jo Saunders.
If you put Jo Saunders into Google, I dominate the first page of Google. It's either my website or LinkedIn at the very top. And the more effort I put in YouTube, that'll rise as well. I'm pretty sure it's on the first page. But
that's easy then.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm everywhere.
You flirt.
I know.
Social flirt. Do you know what you would have been great at, Jo?
Yeah. All right.
If you were one of the original, can you imagine if you started a dating agency?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, talking about connections, you
That's
love
really
you
interesting.
love the way people you find the quirks in people, what makes them attractive to other people,
Yeah.
and then being able to push that into the social. Like if you were one of the pioneers in 2005, oh my God, you'd be so like.
I'll tell you something really interesting then, because it's funny you said that. I actually met my husband through a dating agency.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. How old was I? 18. So I've always been into trying new experiences.
So obviously way before social media, right?
Yeah, way
this is
before.
a physical.
A dating agency where they match you and they have a book of eligible bachelors. And I actually talked about it. I did stand-up comedy, really uncomfortable. Yeah, give it a go. Definitely give it a go. I'm going back and doing it again.
I've had a few stand-ups here on the show.
Yeah, it's a great thing to put yourself through just for the uncomfort factor. But I use that as an analogy. And just talked about the book of eligible bachelors. But that's how I met him. And interestingly, I thought about this is a while ago, because I'm always thinking of ideas. And
You're like me.
yeah, it's like, oh, there's another idea. I've got a dive plate in my shower to capture ideas, because in the shower is all that they'll come. Yeah.
Yeah, mine's in the toilet.
Yeah. Well, the toilet and the shower in the same space. So, but it's always around water, something about water. And I start thinking,
Interesting.
And then I get to 3 thoughts and I can't remember these. I'm going to forget them. So dive plate in my shower. And I've also got waterproof Post-it notes called Aqua Notes.
Serious?
Yep. I discovered those because on Twitter I was talking about ideas in the shower.
What a great idea.
And some company, I don't know, someone tagged me and said, Aquanote, you need to send your product to this person. So I got them in the mail as a freebie, because I was talking about I was calling it shower storming.
You should do your LinkedIn live.
Yeah, that could be a whole other show.
Shower storming, blur out the naughty bits. Oh, this is what I think. Oh, you'd be huge. You'd go huge.
Yeah, and then dating tips, yeah. But one thing I think not back then, because I don't know, maybe one of my friends was going through it, but you look at some of the profiles and they were just as boring as whatever, or they were just really awkward. It's like, seriously, these people need coaching on how to write about themselves, because they need.
I like how you go straight to the coaching of how to do a proper profile in a dating service.
I just think these poor people are probably really nice, eligible people, and they're looking desperate or weird or awkward, and they've got a bad photo.
So you'd be brilliant at that.
I'd love doing that.
You should start something, Jo. Seriously, you should start an agency. You'd go huge. You'd be huge.
Watch this space.
Yeah, watch this space.
Go to here.
And how can LinkedIn work with that?
Well, actually, it's another funny story. So I was talking to a colleague, and maybe this similar conversation came up, and I was just talking about because you get awkward messages on LinkedIn. It happens on Facebook a lot.
Do you get bots like in any other social media platform?
Yeah, yes, but there's also fake profiles. So I was getting hit by these eligible bachelor types on LinkedIn, and I'm just curious. I want to know what they actually want, because I don't, it's not what I think it is. Sure. So I'd keep responding and testing them to see if it was a bot or a real person. Now, my stand-up comedy act also included that. And I partly did it so I didn't have to remember everything, and I could get my phone out and read something. So I read some of the replies for fun, and I said, "Did you know LinkedIn is a dating app?" But I was talking to a colleague about this, and he said, "Yeah, you should come up with a dating app based on LinkedIn." So I thought that's a really interesting concept. And then of course there was an app called Link Up or something, and it was a dating app that somehow brought in people from LinkedIn. I don't know how it validated that they were single, because that's not a criteria on LinkedIn. But yeah, it was finding people on LinkedIn who were eligible based on their income and salary and all sorts of stuff.
God.
Like that doesn't excite me, but the whole quirkiness and connecting people based on interesting quirks and how you think, because I love personality profiling too, and tools.
Excuse me, it then becomes not so much about business, but in the dating world, you'd be really good at that. You'd be like, what makes you attractive? And then you're like, I know the person for you, because there was this other person I did. Something you should look into, Jo.
Yeah. Well, if I get bored of LinkedIn, let's move into dating.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a hilarious and great podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. I know you're really busy now, because when I said, okay, I'll work around you, Jo, you tell me when your times. But your times were really specific. It was like from this date, 2 to 4, 2 to 5, 2 to this. And I was like, yeah, this girl's a busy girl.
Yeah. Well, I'm speaking all over the world, but it's all virtually, which
That's
is
great.
Good and bad. I mean, I'm ready to travel again, but it just means I can wear my Ugg boots and be at my desk.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, and technology allows you to do that.
Yeah.
Which is great, you know.
Yeah, but I'm really looking forward to actually getting on. I've got 2 conferences next year where I'm going on a plane. Yay.
Oh, yeah, half your luck.
Yeah.
Because you're a people person.
Yeah, I just love the energy of being around people.
It's different, isn't it?
But I also like my own company too.
But I'm saying it's different to screen.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Like this is very different to...
Yeah, because you've got a different energy and you can read the person better, and also check out this awesome wallpaper. It is amazing. I'm loving it.
Jo, you just gave away the secret. You told everyone it's wallpaper.
No, it's not wallpaper at all. It looks like wallpaper, or it could be wallpaper, but it's not. Oh no. It's good. Yeah, you just have to guess what it is. You have to come and feel it. It feels amazing.
Thanks, Jo. No, thanks again for coming on. It's been great.
Thanks, Wayne.